accordingly, that we're able to answer all of your questions, and that we get to actually toggle in between the presentation that we have and the application itself. So we're going to get started very, very shortly. I'm going to start switching through some of our introductory slides so that you all know who's here tonight. And then we'll get started in the actual application. So if you are joining us live, my name is Kristen Jones-Manning. I am a part of the Futurology team, which we'll talk about in just a second. I am a school counselor within Capitol Unified, and I'm joined tonight by the lovely Caitlin James.
Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin James. I'm the Regional Recruitment Manager for The Ohio State University based in Southern California. Nice to see you all.
Awesome. So Futurology is the college and career counseling program within Capitol Unified. We are credentialed school counselors, we are experienced admissions readers, and we have data-driven support to support all students within CUSD as they work towards their college and career goals. We have one-on-one appointments, which are highly coveted and fill very quickly. We have targeted outreach for certain populations of students within our district. We have a lot of presentations just like this one that are more specific throughout the college application season and through career support season 2. We have our annual CUSD College Fair, our website, and our YouTube channel with a lot of additional resources to provide for students as they work through their college applications. Caitlin is here again from Ohio State. Her email and contact is here. We're going to hear more specifically about Ohio State at the end of our presentation this evening, and she's going to walk us through some really awesome specifics about the Common App, including for Ohio State and apart from Ohio State, just in general good information. So our instructions for tonight's presentation, if you see this link icon, that means that there is a linked resource for you. This presentation is not super link heavy because we are going to be toggling between the presentation slides and the actual Common Application itself. So I'm hoping that most of what I'm able to show you is in the actual application interface and will look just like the things that you see when you log into your student account. This is a webinar, so your cameras and microphones are currently turned off. You can use the Q&A feature to ask questions. There is no question that's too small. I've already had students pre-submit some questions that we were able to answer really, really easily over the course of the week and in preparation for this presentation tonight. This is one of many presentations that are available to you at the end of our evening tonight. I'm also going to link to our YouTube channel and some other presentations that are ready to go for students that are working through other applications or other parts of their college search. But in general, these are kind of the rules for tonight. So our agenda for this evening is we're going to be discussing what is the Common Application, who accepts it, how to create an account, how to work through the application itself. We are going to troubleshoot some frequently asked questions, discuss do's and don'ts for the Common App essay, and then we're going to have time for additional questions and answers. If you can, hold your questions till the end. I think most of the things that you're curious about we'll be able to go over, but we will definitely save time for that before we wrap up at 8 o'clock. So what is the Common App? There's a little video here that is actually more for our friends who were not able to join us live this evening, but the Common App is one singular platform that includes applications for 900 schools. It is one of the most inclusive applications in the college admission landscape. If you are interested in learning more about Common App, I will link this video also so you can review it later. It's a little bit long for our presentation this evening, but the general sense is that the Common App is one single platform that you're able to apply to several colleges all at once. It includes different deadlines, different essay or writing supplements, different testing requirements, and we're going to look at what those are in just a moment.
For many,
oh, we don't need to watch that one. There we go. Okay, let's talk about getting started. If you have not started filling out your application yet, that is okay. That is what this application webinar is there to support you in doing. In the chat, I'm going to share a link to a student materials folder that I'll reference throughout this evening. This folder has different student profiles for all of our high schools, and it also includes some of these handouts that are linked in the presentation in a long form version, so you can take a look at them later. To get started, To be the most organized that you can possibly be, you really want to just gather the materials and things that you'll need. If you have not had or printed a copy of your high school transcript yet, you can do that really easily on your student portal, your Aries portal. You'll need a list of activities, your work and family responsibilities, things that you do outside of school. You're also going to need test scores or dates. That's going to be an optional piece that we'll look at a little bit more specifically as we add colleges to your CommonApp. You're going to have some information about your parent or your legal guardian, and then any academic honors and achievements. Most of these materials you're going to need to organize for any application that you complete as a part of your senior year. So this shouldn't look too new or specific. Most of the things that are within the CommonApp application you'll need for the UC application, the coalition application, or any other type of form that you're going to complete throughout senior year. So how do we get started creating an account? We are going to do that actually live right now. I'm going to review really quickly what's on the slide listed here because my account is already created. Most of you have probably gotten to this step already. The most important thing that I want to highlight is that you are creating an account that says you're a first year student. You are not a transfer student. You're a current high school student applying for their first year in college, regardless of if you have college credit. So as you set up your account, you're going to click the first year student button to create that particular account for you to use. Please make sure that you're using an email address that you check often. I know that email is hard. I know that you get a lot of communications from school, from colleges, from your teachers, but this is the email that the CommonApp and colleges will use to get in touch with you. If there's anything missing from your application, if they want to clarify something that you've included, you need to make sure that people can get a hold of you. So you're going to need some basic information to complete your registration and start your account, but definitely use a college appropriate email address that you're going to check on a regular basis. I'm going to toggle to the CommonApp login itself. And this is what it will look like. So once you can see that you're on this page, you can see that right here, I am under the first year student. That's exactly what you all should be doing as well. I'm going to type in my email. We're going to log in to see exactly what the application looks like. Oh, if I can remember my password. Let's try that one more time. All right, y'all, hold on. Hold, please. We'll be right back. Let's get logged in and make sure that I can show you everything that we need. In the meantime, if you all would like to create your account as well, you can start with the instructions that are listed on the presentation. All right, here we go. Let's pull up the actual CommonApp. So here is what the Common application looks like as you sign in. Your dashboard right here will have a list of schools that you're going to add. We are not going to do that just yet. I want to focus on what the actual application itself looks like so that you can get a sense of all the things that you're going to need to fill out. This is typically where students have more questions, but we are going to add colleges to your dashboard and look at how the total application works together. So let's do that first. The first part of the application is called your profile. This is personal information that is all about you. Of course, anything that is in your personal information in your profile needs to be related to your legal name, first and last name. It will ask if there are other chosen names or names that you go by and your preferred pronouns. That's totally up to you. But you want to make sure that all of your legal documents for your transcript, your applications match with the same information. Once you start to enter your personal information, you'll notice that there is a blue continue button. Every time that you want to move forward in the application itself, you'll need to click continue to keep moving forward in the application and so that it saves. If you jump between one section and the other without clicking continue, the application will not save. So that's one thing to know right up front about completing your profile, is to make sure that you're saving it, you're clicking continue all the way through, and that you're working through it in a sequential way. The Common App is sequential, meaning the things that you enter in each of these tabs will open up other parts of the application for you to work in. So very frequently I have students who will ask me, I need to put in a college course, or I want to enter this in my Common App, but there's no space for it. And typically it's because something that you included in your initial Common App profile is not complete. So let's take a look at what all of these things are. I'm not going to go too specifically into the individual profile and family section. Most of you are very well versed into how to fill out that information for yourself and your family. You'll see that you're going to include your address, additional demographics, language, and then if you qualify for a fee waiver. If you do have any questions about any of these topics within your initial profile, feel free to stick around or put them in the Q&A. I'm happy to answer them later. Most of them are very straightforward and things that you filled out as a part of other college applications or other applications in general before. In the family tab, you're going to enter more information about your total household. This sometimes seems a little bit intrusive for students, that they're asking you so much personal information, including what your parents do for a living, do you live with them? Anything that has a red dot or a red asterisk is a question that is required. Most of these additional demographic and family information is for your college to screen you for financial aid opportunities or to understand what type of household you come from. They're not used in your total admissions decisions in terms of how demographics are collected. So your family tab is required. You'll see a lot of these questions are listed here. It will also ask if you have any siblings and if they live in the household with you. The education tab is where most students spend, I think, the majority of their time. For your current or most recent or secondary high school, you'll see that I've already added Capital Valley High School as an example here. Any section as you complete it will be marked with a green check mark. That's how you'll know that it's complete and it's filled out completely and good to go. So for your current or most recent high school, you can see that I've added Capital Valley High School as an example. We can remove it and re-add another school using their Finder tool. For your high school lookup, you can type in any high school. We'll type in San Clemente. There it is. And we'll press continue. Now San Clemente High School is listed here. Whatever high school you are currently attending right now is the high school that you'll list first. Your date of entry for our current seniors is August 2018. That was the year that you started high school. You are not at a boarding school, meaning that you do not live on campus, even though sometimes it feels like it now that we're back on campus all the time. And did or will you graduate from this high school? Yes, you will. Your projected graduation date is June of 2022. This question, if you will have any changes or progressions throughout your secondary high school, most of you will have no change in progression if you're filling this out as a freshman applicant. If you started in August and you're ending in June, most of you will have no changes at all. If any of these other options apply to you, you're more than welcome to check them, and then we'll ask you for some additional information there. We're going to press continue. So now that section is complete. And then we'll go to a section that asks you if you've attended other high schools. Students who are currently in their home high school, the school that they've been to all 4 years, you don't have to worry about this. You would just click 0 if you've only been to one high school. If you've attended several high schools throughout your educational journey, that's when you would be prompted to add additional schools here. For most of you, if you're currently in Capo, you will be a 0 because you've been at the same school throughout your time in high school. And then you also have the option to add colleges and universities. This section in particular, if you've taken a community college class, if you have any articulated credits or coursework that you know that you'd like to add to your application, this is where you will add those. If you've taken just a community college class, typically you would just add 1 for Saddleback and it will prompt you to do the exact same things that you did in your initial current or high school. So you'll look up with the search tool to find your college, and you'll enter additional information about how that course is recorded. If you took a class while you were still in high school during the summer, it would technically be dual enrollment with the high school unless it's a regulated summer program like Cosmos or a certificate program or something special that you applied to. Most of the time, any of those courses will still just be considered dual enrollment with your high school unless it's a special program that has multiple components to it. If it's a credit awarded directly by the college, that means that your course is articulated. We do have a lot of articulated courses in CUSD. Most of them are CCA classes, and you should know if you have articulated credit on the bottom of your transcript. The bottom of your transcript usually will list the course that is articulated or what the title of that course is. And usually those are from students who have filled out a form in our CAPMES system. If all of that sounds like mumbo jumbo and something that you've never heard of before, most likely the safest option will be it was just a dual enrollment class with your high school. It's going to ask you some additional details about when you attended and if you earned any type of degree. You'll see here that this question in particular is not a red asterisk. Most of you did not graduate with a high school diploma and an associate's degree and or a bachelor's degree. So you are more than welcome to leave that question blank. I see that we have some questions coming in the Q&A. Monica, I appreciate you getting to some of those answers. We are going to definitely address all of those at the end. Let's just get through this tab first and we'll come back to those, okay? The next section that you're going to include is your grades. This is the other section where students have the most trouble as they start. The easiest way to have all of the information to complete this section is in the student folder that I showed you. And that's in the drive that has your school profile. Most students, all students, have a school profile. Most of you have never looked at them before until your senior year, but a school profile looks just like this. It's a collection of information about your particular high school and what an admissions officer or college can compare as they read or look at your application. So it gives a lot of really great baseline information about your high school. The other thing that's on your school profile that tends to be very helpful is exactly what types of AP courses or accelerated courses you have, what their official title is, if you only have the example or the shorthand version that's on your transcript. They'll also list the GPA grading scale. It will list the GPA distribution for your class, a lot of really cool, helpful information on here. But let's toggle back to the grade section. For your graduating class, that is going to be at the bottom of your transcript, right above your decile. All of this information is in the bottom left-hand corner, right where your GPAs are listed. If you have questions about where to find those things, we can definitely help you at Futureology, but they are on your student portal. You can pull them from Aries. Your graduating class, the actual size will vary. Most of our classes are about 650, 500 to 650 students. Again, that's an approximation. You can have the official number if you want on your transcript, but it's not going to be something that is a make or break deal breaker for you because it will also be listed on your school profile. We do not report class rank in CUSD. We report by decile only. Depending on what your transcript reports, you'll see one number listed under your decile. Again, this is in the bottom section of your transcript. It's also on your Aries portal. Your decile is in groups or in percentages of 10. So if you are decile 3, that means you would be in the top 30%. If you're in decile 1, that means you would be in the top 10%. All of that information is going to be personal to your particular school. So it's important that you're able to access your Aries portal, that you're able to see those things. And if you have questions about those, you can always reference the materials that are in the student folder or double check and ask a Futureology counselor, and we can definitely help you figure that out too. You are going to include your GPA on a scale. We typically recommend that you'll use a weighted GPA. Most of these questions you'll see also have a red asterisk, meaning that it's required for you to enter. The other great thing about the Common App is that your counselor at your high school will be submitting your school report for your school, which looks just like this. It has tons of great information. And they'll also typically be adding your transcript to the application itself on your behalf. So what you report here is important, but it will also be verified by your actual transcript. So don't sweat if you feel like you're not sure what to do or if you're unsure about how to do it right. Most of you have a weighted and an unweighted GPA on your transcript. Your weighted GPA will be the higher of the two, typically because it includes your weighted courses that you've taken. They're going to ask for your cumulative, GPA, which is your academic 9 through 12. That is the very top one that you see in the list of 3 GPAs on your transcript, and it is out of a scale reporting of 4. I know that it seems counterintuitive that you're all saying to me, but Kristen, I have a 4.21. Doesn't that mean that my GPA has to be out of a 5? No, your GPA is out of a 4 because your 4.21 is exceptional. It's above the average student because it includes weighted courses that you took to get there. Your GPA scale reporting for all high schools in CUSD is 4, and you can see on this school profile for San Clemente, it's the exact same. Well, then we'll say that too. So I hope that that clarifies a little bit more about this particular section for grades. It can be a little confusing because some of you have never seen this verbiage before, but I promise you know what you're doing, and this is exactly how you complete it. You're going to press continue to go on to your actual courses, and you'll see that you're going to enter in your senior year courses and grades. Most seniors have 5 courses. That's the bare minimum for students in CUSD. Their juniors and seniors is 5. Some of you will have 6, 7, 8. As many as you have is what you will add. We are on a semester system, and then you're going to add your course subject one by one. I entered an English class because all of you as seniors are in English. This course in particular would be AP Literature and Composition, and it is the course level of an AP. This course is a full school year, and then it will ask you to manually enter in the other courses. I'm going to toggle back to our presentation for 1 second to give you a better list of how you choose what course levels we have, and that will make more sense in just 1 second. So we've walked through creating an account. We have walked through what it looks like when you log in. On your dashboard, I actually did have a school added, but we're going to go back to there. And this is exactly what I described. The Common App works in a sequential way. It adds more information, the more information that you give it. And this is exactly what your dashboard looks like that we just went through. So for your education tab, just to reiterate, your class ranking reports using a decile. So it's going to be one number, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. You will probably need the materials in the high school profile to complete some of that section. All of the high school profiles for CUSD are in that folder. Your GPA scale is out of 4 or 4.0, and you're going to enter your weighted academic 9 through 12 GPA. So you're going to report only your senior courses by semester unless it's requested. And we'll go back to that in just a second. So as you enter your courses, this is the full selection of everything that is included on the Common App. This is a lot of different types of courses, which is what makes it a little bit confusing. The only types of courses that we have in CUSD are a regular standard college prep class. That would be like a regular English class, a regular US history, anything of that nature. An advanced placement, which is designated with an AP or an A on your transcript. College prep is the same thing as regular standard. You can choose either or, it doesn't matter. Dual enrollment, which is a class that is at the community college. An honors course, which is exactly what it sounds like, or an IB course. IB courses are only offered at Capo Valley High School and San Clemente High School. So any of your other classes should be listed here if they were within Capo Unified. If you went to another high school outside of our district that has different programming, it could be possible that you have some of these other types of courses, but for the most part, we should be all inclusive with everything that's highlighted here. I know it seems like a lot of options when you look at it all together in the dropdown, but this is really the only types of courses that you should be selecting. It looks like Monica is still going away typing. Thank you so much, Monica. I really appreciate you. Some of these we'll definitely be able to answer live in just a moment. So we're going to go back to the testing and activities tab in just a second. And I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like on the Common application itself. So under your current or most recent courses, you'll see that you're only entering your senior year courses, the courses that you're currently enrolled in right now. On the side of your application, you'll see this other tab that says courses and grades. As you add colleges to your application, some colleges might want you to enter in all of your courses and grades that you have on your transcript from throughout high school. This will indicate or change for you if you do add a school that requires that. Of the 900 plus colleges on the Common application or that use it, there's less than 100 that require you to input all of your courses and your grades like the UC or the Cal State application does. So if you're filling out your education portion and you're filling out just your most recent courses and grades and you feel like that's good, then you're really good. That's really it. I think some students get flustered that there's something that they've missed or that there's a section that they're not completing because they don't enter all of their coursework. But unless your college requires it, you will only enter your senior year grades, or excuse me, not grades, your senior year coursework. That is because your counselor is going to upload your transcript again to your application, or your transcript will be added to your application manually. So your admissions officer on the other side, when they receive your application, will be able to view all of your other coursework. So unless your college is requesting it, as stated here, you can continue to work through and just add the courses that you're currently enrolled in as a senior. If we go to honors, that will begin with academic achievements and things that you'd like to add to your application, including any type of awards or things that you've worked on. There are more of those in the activities section, and we'll get there. Community-based organizations are different, typically nonprofit organizations that you have worked with or that have helped you as a part of your application process. The most common one for most students in CUSD is if you've worked with Breakthrough, which is based out of San Juan Capistrano. Futureology, Avid, those do not count as community-based organizations. So if this doesn't apply to you, you can just click 0 and keep it moving. And then the last part of your education tab is that it's going to ask you what your career interest is and what type of goals you have for your future. This is not used in a judgmental way as a part of your application process. This is really used to help your reader evaluate what types of things is this student interested in. That's why it's just a very, very short section. There are tons of different options here. You can include anything that sounds cool that's related to your intended major, or you can say that you're undecided. Most of you are going for your first bachelor's degree. If you plan on going to law school or into medicine or other, or you're undecided, you can always choose that as well. Now we're on to the testing tab. Testing is a high profile question at this point because many of you were not able to take an official SAT or ACT. Before we fill out this particular section, you'll notice that it's just going to ask you if you have any tests to report. Most of you, even if you don't have an SAT or ACT, you might have an AP test, an IB exam that you've taken. And so you would just select, yes, I'd like to include those. All of those you'll have to include that you want to report here. What types? I would say AP or IB are the most common. And then almost none of you are considered international applicants. So that's not a big deal. If you continue on through that section, it will ask you just how many tests or how many that you've reported. For your AP test official scores, many of you have asked our program you know, I earned a 3, but I have a couple of 4s and 5s. Can I just report the ones that I think are a little bit better? Do I need to report all of them? When you send your AP score report from College Board, it includes all of them. So however many tests you've taken, include them all. There's no score choice option for your AP exams. They send all on one report from the College Board. So however many you've taken, that's how many you should report. Let's take an arbitrary number like 2. If you've already taken these exams, you can put in the date or the month or year that you've taken them from the year before. If you took any last year, all AP tests are in May. And then you can choose the particular subject that you tested in. Pretty straightforward. For additional tests, for SAT and ACT, it will greatly depend on the individual college that you're applying to. So let's go back because I think students have typically more questions about that. We have only one college that we've added to our dashboard, and we are going to get there. We're going to add more colleges to this dashboard. Once you add a college, you'll be able to click on the name and learn more information about what they expect from your application. When is it due? What is the fee? And then what is the standardized testing policy? Their standardized testing policy for Ohio State is it is sometimes required. And then there's more information there. Caitlin, I'm not sure if you want to clarify for our students for this particular application cycle, is Ohio State test optional, test blind? Where are we at for Ohio State?
So we are completely optional, and this is one of those things where sometimes even I'm curious about what we have to put. So it's encouraged, but it's not a requirement. When it comes to certain tests, like for international students, we may require certain tests. So it's kind of a blanket for any kind of standardized test. But for SAT and ACT, it is not required, not for admission nor for scholarships.
Awesome. Thanks so much. You'll also be able to see as you add schools, if your school report is required. That is something that your guidance team, your counselor, your high school will submit. That includes your transcript and also includes your school profile. So lots of information about your school. A final report, which includes your final transcripts when you earn your final grades. And then if any teacher evaluations or counselor evaluations, those are letters of recommendation, are required or optional. For Ohio State, there are no evaluations that are required. There's one that you could submit optionally if you would like. And then adding a college will also tell you more information about what is required for their writing supplements. We're going to get here in just a few moments with Caitlin. So I'm going to go toggle right back to the actual Common Application and our testing section. Because we do not have selected an SAT or an ACT, there's no place to input it. If you add additional SAT or ACT options, that's where you would be prompted to add those scores. Because the only college that we have on our application at this point is optional, it's not going to add any questions with a red asterisk to make you input that score because it's totally up to you. That is how the testing tab works. It is a little bit more complicated than it has been in previous years where you would be prompted to enter everything when it was previously required. There is a lot more flexibility there, which is awesome. Besides your testing, the last couple of tabs are activities and then your writing supplements. Your activities section is very, very straightforward, very similar to the UC application or any other type of scholarship application that maybe you have completed. You can add up to 10 activities with a max character count of 50, which is very, very short. A lot of questions that we typically get about adding activities is, how do I prioritize these? What do I put first? What do I put second? What do I put third? There really is no strategy to what order you put things in. I think most often students put things in chronological order. So from their most recent activities to the things that they've done through their freshman year. You're going to include any type of organization name that you are affiliated with. For most of you, for your clubs, sports, activities, it would be just be your high school. Otherwise, it could be the name of your club soccer team or your club volleyball team, anything like that. And then you have 150 characters to describe what that activity is. It's going to ask you what grades you did or participated in that activity, and then if it was during the school year, during a school break, like a trip, or if it's something that you do all year. It's also going to ask you to manually guesstimate the hours per week that you spend doing this activity and the total weeks per year. The total weeks per year is 52, and the number of hours spent per week is usually out of 40. So if you participate in a club soccer team that practices every day, it might be 20 hours a week out of 40. It might be 30 hours a week out of 40, but those are typically the maximum amounts that are per year. And then it's going to ask you if you'd like to continue to participate in those types of activities in college. That's totally up to you if you'd like to answer those. Beyond the activities section, I want to toggle back to our presentation because there are some extra pointers that I have on here. Ooh, we're going to add colleges next. We'll come back to that. Actually, we're not, just kidding. Okay, your activities section. Oh, it is in here. It's in your activities tab. You can only add 10. We do have a webinar that's linked at the end of this presentation that I think is very, very helpful, that is specifically designed for the UC activities and awards section. On the UC application, you can add 20 total activities. So it is a lot more comprehensive that way, but it's a great resource if you want to learn more information on how to phrase things specifically for your reader within a word count, how to describe them with more active verbiage, and to make your application and that specific tab of your application really, really shine. There is definitely an awesome way to describe some of the activities and things that you do, and a more simplistic, less shiny way to describe some of those things. If you're interested in making that part of your application really, really strategic and great, that's an awesome webinar to watch and continue with. So now let's add colleges. So we're finally at the part where we're going to get more information on your Common application. So adding a college is as simple as clicking the plus key. You're going to enter the college name. Not all colleges will have additional questions or essays, so we're going to make sure that you check on those. Let's add an additional school to our list. To add a school to your dashboard, you're going to click over to the college search tab. You'll see that there are plenty that are listed here in alphabetical order. What we are going to do instead is find another school. So let's add Stanford. We're going to click the little plus key. Now we have a green check mark that means it should be on your dashboard. Once you add things to your dashboard, there are a lot of different ways that you can view and work your application. You can use your dashboard as a guide. You can also use the My Colleges tab, which will have everything listed this way. I prefer the My Colleges tab just because it's a little bit easier to see all of your information organized together. But this will include the same type of profile that we already looked at for Caitlin's school, Ohio State. So for Stanford, it will tell you when the deadline is. It will give you other specific information. Stanford is a very competitive program, so they have a lot of information included here. It will tell you what their testing policy is, and then it will tell you what is required. It will also tell you what their writing supplements look like. For most schools on the Common application, your Common application essay is going to be required. There might be additional supplemental questions that are included based on the individual school's wants and needs. A school like Stanford has 8 additional questions that you'll be required to answer before you're able to submit their application on the Common App. So that's just something to know. If you are getting organized, starting your application right now, adding schools to your Common App and starting to fill out your total profile in the application will give you a much better sense of the other things that you need to plan your time for. If you're looking at writing just your Common App essay as the only thing you need to do, and you find out later, oh no, I have to answer 8 more, that's something you probably want to know at this point in the application season before we're getting really close to deadlines and you don't have time to edit those and make them really great. So if there's anything that you take away from this application webinar tonight, it's start your profile, start your full Common App soon, and start to add the schools that you're interested in because you'll have a lot more information included there. You'll see now that we've added Stanford. If we go back to the application, They now would like your courses and your grades. So if you can access your transcripts, which all of you can because you have a portal, that's when they're going to prompt you to put in more additional coursework. So you'll see that you need to add your 9th grade courses, your 10th grade courses, 11th grade, and so on. This will change down here based on the types of colleges that you add to your dashboard. So just be on the lookout for that. Of course, the application itself won't let you continue unless you start to fill this out for those particular applications. But it will be determined by the colleges that you add to your total application. Okay. Let's go back to our presentation. I'm going to take a look at some of the questions we have in the Q&A. Great. We have some specific ones. I see that we need the link again for the student materials folder. Let's do that really quickly. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, we are going to answer some of these live. So thank you all for putting those in the Q&A. It's going to be really helpful. After you've added colleges to your application, you're going to now be able to see if you can add recommenders to your application as well. CommonApp is historically in California the only application that uses letters of recommendation outside of scholarships. So the Cal States, no letters of recommendation. UC application, no letters of recommendation. Only those are on the CommonApp itself. Your recommenders, like we looked at your school profiles previously, and we'll look back again on the application, are going to vary in requirement by school. Some schools will want 1 from your counselor, maybe 1 or 2 from a teacher, and some will want none at all. They'll be completely optional to add to your profile. You're always going to add your assigned counselor at your school. That's because your counselor has the most privileges for uploading your transcript, your school profile, and being able to upload any other documents that a college is requesting from them. So let's go back and look at the application. And we'll see for Ohio State, there is 0 teacher evaluations that are required. There is a school report required. There's an optional one, and there are no other evaluations that are applicable. You're going to see that there are additional things here that are general questions about the college. This is in addition to your common application. Anything that you put on the Common App, this section and this tab, your total profile, is what will be sent to every single school you apply to. Everything that's in these supplemental questions for your applications for these individual schools will only be sent to these particular schools. So your Common App needs to be a summary as general as it can be and include the most basic information you want every school to know about. Anything that is specific to Ohio State or Stanford will go once you add them to your dashboard and you're able to add in more information here. The thing that I want to highlight is when we're adding recommenders and FERPA. FERPA is a set of regulations that is designed to protect your educational information as students. You'll see that there's a release authorization here, and you'll be able to view the details of that. Most of your counselors will not agree to write you a letter until you complete your FERPA release, because that means that you're authorizing them to, number 1, upload transcripts on your behalf, and also upload a letter that you probably won't be able to read before it's uploaded. This is a part of confidentiality. It's a part of making sure that your application is streamlined and it looks just like this. It looks a little bit scary, but it's going to ask you, do you know what this is in relation to your college applications? You're going to be asked, are you waiving your rights? You don't intend to read your letters of recommendation before they're submitted. This is a very normal part of the process. I know that it looks very scary, but all of you should understand and release your FERPA and press continue. It's going to ask you again, are you sure? Are you sure that you're acknowledging that schools can look at the records that are included here, that I'm not going to be able to see my letter? And you only have to select and do this once, but it's very challenging to go do it back or change it back later. So you understand that you should be waiving your rights to review all of your supporting documents initially. You'll sign and date it, and then it will close. Oh, today is not August 5th. Let's enter a date that is actually a real day. Today is September 15th, and close. If you are very, very curious about what has been added to your application, under FERPA, there are stipulations that later, after your admissions decisions have been made, you can request to see some of those documents as an enrolled college student. I've never had any students go through that process, so I can't speak to exactly how long that takes or how specifically it works. But your FERPA release will be a very important piece to allowing your recommenders to start uploading things on your behalf. So please do it. To invite your recommenders, it is as simple as some of these little tabs here. There are lots of different selections that you can choose. It'll say you must invite a school counselor. That's because they need to upload these types of materials for you. You're not going to be able to do it on your own. They're also going to be able to upload your transcript. Your teacher is somebody who you trust to speak about your educational history, somebody who you feel like knows you really well. You'll see under all of these, it will tell you how many of these are required or optional. So for Ohio State, there are no required recommenders listed here, which means that technically you would be fine without adding anybody to your application besides your counselor. An advisor, and I know that this verbiage is kind of tricky, is somebody who can assist you with your application in a view-only way. So a futurology counselor could be your advisor, a coach, a parent, a sibling who's filled it out. Any of those people can be an advisor because they cannot upload any forms on your behalf. So anyone who you'd like to write a recommendation for you, they will not be an advisor. It is as simple as clicking invite counselor and including their email address, first and last name. On the other side, as they receive these types of applications in their dashboard, your advisors and counselors will get an automated email with a specific link where they can upload things for you. It's a very simple process. It is fully electronic and fully automated. If you have not spoken with your advisors and counselors about needing a letter of recommendation, or if you're not sure if you need one, adding schools to your dashboard will be the easiest way for you to know that for sure. I know most high schools, because there are so many students, do not include their counselor besides adding their school profile unless a letter is required. So if it's an optional form for teachers and counselors, typically they will be at the back of the line or the last of the list to do those things because your college is not requiring it. So students who have required letters, you'll definitely be at the front of the line. Students with priority deadlines, your letters will be worked on first, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of how we've always organized things within CUSD. You won't be able to submit your common application until you complete all of these things and until your common app is completely filled out. So to begin the submission process, they're going to take you back to your actual first profile part of your common app application and walk you through each individual step. So you won't need to worry about, I don't know if I added those things yet, or I want to double check one more time. The application is really intuitive. It will automatically force you to walk through each section one more time to continue before you actually submit. So that's just something to know. On your dashboard, it's the same exact organization as your My Colleges tab. So it's totally up to you the way that you view them. Like I said, I prefer the My Colleges tab just because it's all listed in a way that I visually prefer. But on your dashboard, you can see if your application is in progress. And once you've submitted it, it will be a nice, pretty green check mark like the other sections are. Okay. That is the basics of the Common App. There are a lot of specific questions in the chat that I am going to start answering. We're going to toggle back to the presentation, and I am going to hand it off to Caitlin. There is more information in the presentation about the screenshots that I just showed you, including waiving your FERPA rights and adding your recommenders. I'll leave those in the slide presentation. Feel free to look at them later if you'd like more information about who is who and what is what. I promise it's all linked there for you to look at. So don't sweat if we went a little bit fast through that. I want to make sure we give Caitlin enough time to talk about how letters of recommendation build your profile and your essay. So I'm going to hand it off to Caitlin to talk a little bit more about this from the college side.
Awesome. Thanks, Kristen. Big shout out to your counselors. They're doing a lot of the hard work, answering a lot of your questions. And I think this refresher always just gives me that perspective of how long you work on this process and how detailed you have to be whenever you're going through this application. It's super important. The wild thing is that we only spend so little time on your application. So you put all this hard work in for numerous colleges to review that. And we kind of have to do a very quick glance at a lot of these things when we're looking at your application. So as we're continuing the conversation, we're talking about how letters of recommendation build your profile. So again, this is optional for a lot of schools, same with the UCs and the CSUs. But for certain schools that you might be applying for, it provides context about your school environment. Given the fact that you've gone through the COVID-19 pandemic, you've had interruptions, maybe there were wildfires and things like that. You know, there's been a lot here in Southern California. And so it's going to provide us maybe a little bit more about that school environment that has impacted you. Context about the life that you've lived. Maybe you've gone through particular challenges or, you know, divorced parents or things like that. You know, there's just a lot of family dynamics that can play into that is a lot easier for a recommender to kind of share that information than sometimes you want to share. It might be a little bit harder for you. So it provides more information from that and kind of how you've lived through adolescence and how you've matured into that adulthood. It allows us to get to know your goals a little bit better. So maybe you have certain achievements, or maybe you have been a part of a program that was particularly elite or competitive. It provides more space to share a little bit more information about that. And then there's also opportunities to provide your viewpoints of your performance as a student, maybe how that compares to the rest of your academic class. Maybe you've changed high schools a couple of times throughout your life and how you've adapted to those changes too. So that's a little bit more about how this letter of recommendation can add a little bit of a layer. I like to call the entire application more like a jigsaw puzzle, whereas the application, the Common App, is really kind of that biggest part right in the center. And then all of these little pieces kind of fill in that whole beautiful ending result of what it means to kind of be you, what you look like, how you view the world. And that's really important to us too. So on the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit more about the writing your Common App essay and supplemental questions. So on the next slide, we'll talk about why is the essay important. It kind of does two things here. Colleges want to know something genuine about you that shows reflection and growth. We really want to get to know you, the fact that you can kind of look back and understand what you've gone through in your 17, 18 years on this planet, and some of the challenges that you might have had, or just what your perspective on life is. That's always important to remember, is that you don't always had to have gone through a lot of challenges. If you've led a really wonderful life with a lot of opportunities, that's absolutely awesome too. We just kind of want to get a better perspective about you as an individual. And the other point is the fact that it's one of the few aspects of the application that you have completely in your hands. That can be nerve-wracking, but also invigorating in the same point, is that this is your chance to kind of reflect more about how you view the world right here, right now, maybe how the pandemic has changed that, maybe some things that you've gone through and your friends that you've made and things that you've learned have really shaped that. So that's why it can be important. Now, on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about kind of how this essay is an opportunity for you. As we mentioned, it's one of the only pieces that you can still control. It allows you to highlight something that you maybe haven't already covered in your application. I know someone asked about a gold award that they were working towards. I've read plenty of essays about maybe a Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts project that you've you've accomplished or achieved. You've kind of taken that space to expand more about what you've learned. And so that's a really great opportunity to share something new. Reflection or growth during an important time of your life. Like we mentioned, there's a lot of things that maybe you've gone through. Again, the pandemic is not unique to anyone at this point, but how you've experienced and what you came out, how you've come out of it, what you've realized from that. It gave a lot of time for self-reflection from people across age ranges. So maybe there's something that you've learned from that, but it also allows you to showcase your writing style and your critical thinking skills. When we go through this, we're not going to go through your essay with a red pen. However, we will, kind of really get a sense of your writing style, how you share a story, especially on paper. I know some people, for me especially, I'm a much better writer if I put it down in person than if you were to ask me kind of off the cuff to talk about a brand new idea or a challenging question or something philosophical. I like to write it all out to be able to convey my sense of ideas. So it might suit you better to have that space to write. And essays are subjective. You really want to write what you want to write, not what you think we want to hear. So we talk about some topics maybe to kind of think about, but we really want to know what's important to you. That's what matters. All of this is just advice. You can kind of take this with a grain of salt, but it's really up to you. I really recommend just kind of using that space to tell us something new. So on the next slide, we're going to see types of writing that you typically see. So there are a couple of those. So we might see short essays that you might be writing, personal statements. That might be just something more about you, maybe why you want to go into the particular field you're pursuing, variety of different things. Just tell us your story. Supplemental questions, those can be the really short supplemental questions. I know University of Chicago is famous for their weird questions, quirky questions that they ask. And so they could be among a variety of different things to kind of get how you understand how you think. Additional information, artistic portfolio or artistic statements. That may be something that's relevant to the major that you're applying for. And then also we will potentially see in your file any emails that you've sent us, any letters or text messages that you've sent us as well, if we've communicated with you that way. I used to work for an institution where those text messages weren't necessarily included in the application, but it sure did make a reflection of you as an individual. If you didn't think there was a person on the other side of that. So it's always important to any writing that you send to a college, make sure that it is structured in an appropriate way, in a formal manner. In a sense, it doesn't always have to be addressed dear person. It can be, but just kind of keep that in mind that someone might be looking at that and it might be included. So it's always important to think that there's someone else, an actual person behind that information as well. So CommonApp essays, we've talked a lot about the CommonApp. So just remember that there are 6 essay topics, actually 7. And so we'll see all of these listed here. I don't want to read through every single one, just to kind of give you that sense that you can see all of them. But some students have, on the first one, some students have an identity or a background. There's also obstacles that we encounter, or reflect on a time or question your belief or idea. Reflect on something that has that someone has done for you or that has made you happy or thankful, so acting out gratitude, and then a couple other ones. And the last one is have a topic of your own. If you do decide to go through with that topic, just make sure to indicate that topic at the top of your essay whenever you are submitting that in the CommonApp. And I really want to stress here, just remember to not include any university names. Remember, as Kristen said, that all of these, all of your general CommonApp is going to go to every single college that you submit it. That includes your writing portion that is included in that overall CommonApp. Anything within those college boxes are going to be included separately. So we'll talk through some essay writing tips here on the next slide, kind of breaking it down into a couple of sections here. So we really want to encourage you to avoid mistakes. Again, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but don't assume that readers have the exact same opinion or experience. I see so many students that kind of very much take this perspective of generalization. one may think that this, and this, or one must believe that, we could do this. It's really try to stay away from this. This is your opinions, your thoughts, and that's important to share. So don't always assume that someone sees those same beliefs as you, because again, you never know who might be on that other side of that application. So kind of keep that into consideration. So if you're not really sure, definitely ask your counselor, any of your futurology counselors, to kind of help you with brainstorming those topics, or if that might be something to stay away from. I can't stress that enough. Remove the school names. I definitely love that you might be passionate about my institution, but I sure do hate it when I see that you're passionate about another one, especially if it might be a rival of my school. So it's one of those funds we kind of chuckle, but that's definitely a mistake that we don't want to see, that you can easily avoid. So definitely review through that and double check that those things are going separate places. And that just leads to my final note, of course, have someone review it. You don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen, if you will. I would really encourage maybe, a teacher who knows you well that can kind of look over it for especially kind of the grammar, the flow, the structure, those kinds of things. Again, we're not going to take a red pen to this. However, I will see, capitalization. I will see your sentence style and the structure that you have. I will see some formatting in a sense that, how you structure paragraphs and starting a new thought. I can see some of that as that takes shape, but I can't necessarily see any bolding or italicized things like that. So try to take that out. When it comes to that too, make sure that you're looking, have a friend review it if you feel comfortable doing so. A friend knows you pretty well, and they're going to know that if that sounds like you, does that sound like your voice? And then maybe, think about maybe a parent reviewing that kind of as a last go round, or, again, someone else close to you. It just depends on what you're writing and what you feel comfortable sharing. But I really recommend at least having someone else review it. And then the last tip really is just read it out loud. Does it sound like you? Does it make sense? I feel like a lot of times when we read an essay out loud ourselves, we're like, oh, this kind of doesn't really sound right, or this doesn't come off the way I wanted it to. So read it out loud yourself, because I feel like that will give you a really good sense of if it sounds like your voice. Does it really sound like something you'll share? A lot of students sometimes use this essay space as, almost a diary in a sense. And so I appreciate and respect and honor all the things that you share with us. I read a lot of essays about anxiety last year. So it's important for us to kind of take that into consideration as you're reviewing that too. We talk about essay style, get the reader hooked. I'm selfish because I'm reading a lot of essays. Last year, I read over 800 applications. So yes, I want to read something fun, something that's engaging. I have definitely cried at essays before that have moved me to tears. Just thinking about some of the things that students out there have gone through. Every story is different. And like I mentioned, I really take that to heart. It's so special that I get to see what life is like through your shoes in this instance. And so I really take that to heart. So get that reader hooked. Tell us some really awesome stuff, especially when you start out. I can kind of tell where this is going to go within that first couple sentences. Get to the point. Really think about overwriting. Cut out a lot of that extra. I've read plenty of essays this year, especially for students where I'm just like, you're just saying a lot of nonsense. We don't need to talk about this. Really work on an outline that'll keep you kind of centered and to the point when it comes to that. So you're getting to the point very quickly. Use examples. Use those structures that you've learned in your English classes. That's really going to help you stay concise and focused when you're writing this essay. So we really kind of get to know. And then show us, use that descriptive language. Take out some of those verbs that are really boring, like am, is, are, was, were, all those kinds of stuff. Use active verbs, right? We want to see really descriptive ones. So this is some of the time when you can use the thesaurus, but don't get too crazy with it. Just use a word that makes sense, but something that you feel really describes, that activity or vision or something like that. Those are things that we want to see, but don't worry about going too into any of those like SAT vocab, things like that. Hopefully you don't have to worry about those anymore. Okay. And then frequently used topics. As I mentioned, this is all just advice. You can take whatever you want from this, but there are some topics where we see a lot about. Sports, especially any sports injuries that you might have had. I have read plenty of time. There was one essay where I read about an ACL, an MCL, and an LCL tear, and I didn't even know that you could do that. So just note that there are a lot of things that we read about that are pretty common. Travel, that's an awesome opportunity that you've had. What did you learn? Community service, kind of volunteering. And we talked about that kind of gold star or your gold award. Make sure that it's really kind of driving home what's important to you, maybe your values, and again, those broad conclusions that you might make. So really keep it specific. It doesn't have to be broad reaching. It can be about your favorite show, but make sure that you keep it about you. Don't spend too much time describing the situation or something else. Make sure it's always going to reflect back on you. So that's really important to us as well. So we're talking kind of through some of the supplemental questions. On this next slide, you'll see a little bit more about kind of shorter writing samples in an essay, but equally important. This is where you can talk about the specific institution, and these can be unique to each school, indicative of the culture, campus, or the values. So make sure to do your research if a school has these. They're like essays, but answer the ones that come easily to you first. And don't save them for the last minute. Make sure you know what you have to write, because they could take a little bit longer, require a little bit more thinking. And again, make sure to not repeat some of the ideas that you've already utilized in an essay. We do have, at Ohio State, we do have an optional essay for a scholarship. I hate when I see a student that has used the same personal essay and then copy pasted it into the scholarship essay. I always want to know something new. So make sure to do that with that, because remember, we can see it all. On the next slide, we'll see a little bit more about kind of just, again, those additional helpful tips for completing your application. So I know that we've talked kind of through some of those things, and I'm not sure if Kristen wants to chime in here a little bit more about some of those tips and things that might help, but just really focus on some of these things. So Kristen, I'll let you share a little bit more about those tips too.
Thanks. So like I showed you earlier, there's a lot of different ways you can organize your Common App. So you can organize by your dashboard or by deadline so that you don't miss anything. We really want to encourage you to add your recommenders early. So if you're adding schools to your Common App tonight, you should be able to see if you have a recommendation that is required and if that's something that they need to start working on for you by a priority deadline or a scholarship deadline. Your guidance teams are so awesome. They want to be able to help you complete these forms, but they do need to know ahead of time, which I think is a pretty reasonable ask for most of you. So just like Caitlin described, every part of the application include variety, include more information about you. Like Caitlin, our whole team at Futureology reads for the UC system, and we'll talk about those next week. But every part of the application is an opportunity to tell us something new about you. Your personal statements can be used for scholarship applications, but don't double dip. So try and include more different varied information, especially if you have the option to, which you won't for every single application. So I'm going to hand it back off to Caitlin. She's going to talk about timeline for admissions and how your applications are reviewed. And we are wrapping right up, y'all. We're doing really great.
Awesome. Yeah. And I just want to stress, if you're applying to external scholarships, that might be something that you can repeat. If it's outside of the university system or the institution that you're utilizing, some private scholarship, definitely don't work harder than you have to when it comes to some of those. But again, ask your counselors. So this is our timeline, kind of what we're looking at in a particular year. You can kind of see we've talked about June, July, August. You're starting to prep maybe your application materials over the summertime. We're looking into September and October. This is when admissions reps are typically starting to come to your colleges, or excuse me, your high schools, or you can reach us for any help on the common application or however it may be. We want to encourage you to reach out to us with questions. We are happy to help with anything that you might have. In October, you're hopefully going to start finalizing that application or maybe start opening depending on the time frame in which that application process is for you. It's also the time that you start maybe scheduling or attending university previews or going to campus visits at different institutions, and also the FAFSA opens, the free application for federal student aid. October 1st, that's a big holiday now in your household. It's not a fun holiday. Sorry, you don't always necessarily get presents with this one, but you might. And they might come in the terms of free aid, depending on how you complete that and what you might be eligible for. November, of course, November 1st is a popular early action deadline or early decision deadline, depends on how you might be applying. And then, of course, in December, you're continuing to submit applications. Universities may start to review applications or may release decisions on a rolling basis. Every school is a little bit different. Early January, as we saw, Stanford's deadline is January 5th. It's another popular application deadline, maybe toward the end of that month is another one as well. We're continuing to review applications and make decisions or release some of those too. And then in February, you might start scheduling your visits to the schools that you've been admitted to, if that's the case. Universities continue to host programs, and then FAFSA priority deadline is typically within that month too. And then March, you're going to continue to apply or deciding on the path of what your future may hold. You might have received some admissions decisions by then. And universities begin to roll out financial aid packages if they haven't done so already at that point. April is final decisions usually are released if you're applying to school with pretty strict deadlines. Students might visit schools or make final decisions, or you might still be applying to schools in your local area too. And then May 1st is a common national college decision deadline for a lot of institutions. That's where you've kind of visited, you've checked out all of your options, you've assessed your financial aid opportunities, and you get to make that decision of what is next for you. On the next slide, we'll see a little bit more about kind of how the CommonApp is reviewed. So I really want to stress kind of at the beginning, we are setting the stage within that profile. So I know the text is kind of small on this slide, but it'll be in the printout too. But we first see your profile information. We are just kind of understanding that context. We're looking at who you've lived with, any languages spoken, siblings, schools you've attended, for how long, any honors or future plans, and current year coursework. So for the student that was asking about senior year coursework, yes, we want to see that, and the level of classes that you're taking too. Shaping what we know is kind of the activities and the essays. That's kind of filling all in those gaps, right? We've talked about making this kind of that jigsaw puzzle, kind of filling everything in. We're then looking at your activities list. We're looking for a number of different things depending on the school. It might include leadership, service, work experience, family responsibilities, unstructured pursuits, as I like to call them. So hobbies or things that you might have enjoyed or created as passions during quarantine too. We'll also look at the COVID-19 supplement or additional information if you've decided to use that, and many other supplemental answers or activities that you might have submitted alongside that too. And then kind of filling in the rest of those gaps includes your academics. So we'll then maybe look at your high school transcript. We're going to see kind of the setting, the school profile, and what you have done that. We will then review your high school transcripts kind of to see how you've challenged yourself, the rigor of the coursework that you've taken based on what is available to you and what is maybe a maximum that you were allowed to take. I know we've asked a lot about dual credit. We'll see some of those components in there as well if you've challenged yourself in that way. And then any other additional information that might be filled in here that can kind of help us understand a little bit more about you, those rec letters, any additional information. So one thing I really want to stress overall on this application is that please use, capitalizations, really think about the text that you're writing in. I see a lot of times students just kind of write through and nothing is formatted in a way, or I's are not capitalized. This is not going to auto correct for you when you submit. So really take that into consideration on your grammar and all of the text that you're actually writing in. And remember that someone, again, is on the other side to see the rest of that. So we've talked a lot about all of this information. I think on the next slide, we're going to just talk a little about Q&A, answer any questions that we might have about what's next. And I know we'll bring Kristen back to you.
Yeah, so thank you all for sticking with us. I know that CommonApp tends to be a little bit more complicated than some of the other applications that our students complete for schools in state. I want to make sure that we have enough time to answer some additional questions. If you all have them, you did such a stellar job Big hats off to Monica for answering so many of those questions while I was toggling and talking. She is the real MVP tonight. If you do have a specific situation, a specific course, program, anything like that, that we did not cover in depth, obviously this evening, feel free to email our inbox, which will be on the screen in just a second, or come to our drop-in times. So I know that Futurology appointments are few and far between. We are booked out regularly, which is really awesome and really exciting for our small team, but I know is frustrating for some of you who really want to get some of these things figured out quickly. Our inbox is CUSD-Futureology@capousd.org. Again, it'll be on the next slide very quickly. I'm just going to leave the Q&A box open. This is an exit survey. If all of you have time to complete that or scan it with your phone to fill it out, it helps us make sure that we put presentations together that cover all of the things that you have questions about, and that we are planning things for the fall and the spring semester that address your needs. So I'm going to continue to answer some questions in the Q&A. I'm also going to reiterate some questions that I answered previously that I think would be great verbal explanations for some of our friends who might be watching this later. So one of the more common questions that I saw is, what happens or what should we do if I have one school that would like an official SAT or ACT score and another school that doesn't care or doesn't want that score and that I don't want to send it to? The way that you do that is that you add it to your profile in your testing tab, submit for that school only that requests that score, and then you can go delete it before you apply to any other schools so that they won't see it. You do have the option to update your testing activities, your courses in between every single time you submit your common application. So if there's something that you really, really want to highlight for one particular school, you want to make your application more specific, you can go do that. And then you can go change it before you submit for other schools based on their qualifications. So I have some more questions that are coming in. Let's look at some of those. The highest composite score, Erin, for SAT and ACT is the highest typically for a single setting. If a school is going to super score on their own or use your highest from multiple test sittings, they'll be very clear about that on their admissions page, or they'll do it manually on their own. So that's not something that you'll have to worry about as a student calculating in particular. Ewan, you have some questions about who would be good to review supplemental questions specific to individual schools. Our team's happy to do that. I will say we definitely have a bandwidth power with how many counselors we have. Our team is very small. If you're organized and you have some of them drafted, we're happy to look at them in any of the drop-in sections that are coming up in October and November, or a little bit earlier if you're really well organized right now. Caitlin gave some great tips about how to organize and structure your answers to some of those questions. And I think that hopefully we provided a great starting point for you tonight. I'm going to include some additional questions that I'm going to reply to in the chat. And then I want to highlight, before we continue to keep answering, just what is coming up and what's available to all of you for the rest of the fall. So there are more college application resources and presentations on our YouTube channel. We already have the Cal State Apply, the full UC application, and the UC activities and awards section webinars recorded. You can watch those anytime. They're very similar in style to this, where we toggle through presentation and slide information, and then the application itself. None of those applications changed from last year to this year, so all of the information is still super relevant and super useful if you're working through those right now. Next week, same time on Wednesday, we are going to talk about the UC Personal Insight questions, which are a little bit different than the CommonApp essay. So if you are also applying to any UC schools, we'll be doing those next week. Those are linked here on this slide for you. So as soon as we are wrapped up this evening, I'll be sending out the recording of this presentation to all of you who registered and were able to come live, and also to our friends who maybe registered but were not able to join us live as well. This presentation will also be linked on our website if you'd like to take a closer look at it later. Here is how you get a hold of us at Futurology. You can find us on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Twitter. On Fridays on Instagram for the next 2 weeks,